Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday where we're going to be talking, we got a few things to talk about, but it's brought to you by schoolbookkeeping.com. Racheal unfortunately doesn't have the school bookkeeping uniform on because she's not with school bookkeeping. she's playing Kate today.
Yes.
So we have a couple things that we want to, we're shifting gears a little bit. And we're going to start a new series, which will ultimately turn into a course on schoolbookkeeping.com. And Carrie, what are we calling this course that we're actually creating?
Well, we're going to talk about anything to do with payroll, so that our students will feel comfortable in different aspects of payroll. And as our normal 3-minute videos go, they'll be able to pick and choose where they feel weakness, which maybe the whole thing may just be one thing. So,
right. And what we realized, you created a course, Bookkeeping Fundamentals, right? And what did you learn as you were creating it? Sometimes, as the teacher, you end up learning something in that process.
Yes, exactly. Because, the Bookkeeping Fundamentals just gives you a lot of vocabulary around bookkeeping, and then it empowers you when you're meeting with your clients. And so that's the purpose of that. And then Payroll Fundamentals, we want to do similar process there. But yes, I did, as I was going over some terms, I had to tighten up some of the areas that I felt a little weak in. And as I explained it in the video, I became better too. So we all can learn together.
So we're going to be talking about, payroll fundamentals, and that's why we have Racheal with us, who's subbing for Kate today with ADP. But we also wanted to talk to Shawna about a partnership opportunity that we've been talking about with her. And in general, we wanted School of Bookkeeping when we first took this on. We wanted School of Bookkeeping to be kind of a Netflix for accountants, right? Same kind of idea with Netflix, right? You have a subscription base where you can log in, you can binge all you want. We just don't ask you if you're still watching after 4 hours, right? It just keeps going on and on. But that's what we were originally thinking, is that we would have School of Bookkeeping be that for accountants, bookkeepers, and potentially small business owners, right? It'd be just a way for people to log in, learn some tutorials, and get back to business, right? And we never wanted to be industry specific. There's just too much to know, right, Carrie?
There's too many. It's too many. It's an encyclopedia of knowledge. So we're trying to cover that first layer real good, fill all that in, and then what we were thinking is that there are people that are out there that have crafted a niche for themselves, and that's ultimately what you want to do in this industry is find a niche that fills you with passion, and the customers and the clientele, and dive in a little bit deeper, right? And as one or two people, creating content on school bookkeeping, we're never going to be able to go to all that great detail, because one, we don't have that clientele that we've dove into to be able to do that. And so we're actively always looking for accounting professionals to partner with, where we can take on the kind of the fundamental burden, right, of the education piece of that. And then when they get to the point of, okay, I really need to get into the nitty gritty or the nuts and bolts, we have someone that we can partner with. And so we're going to start this process with Shawna. So Shawna, tell us a little bit about your story, like where your business that you're you've created and what you focus on?
So I went on my own about 7 years ago and created a bookkeeping firm. I went in the direction willingly or unwillingly into the direction of working with contractors and designers. Job costing is something that I really love. It allows me to be a true nerd. Recently decided that I wanted to be able to continue to grow my business after meeting, or I guess getting to several milestones. But I didn't want to grow any more internally because I'm kind of overdoing a bunch of administrative work for my internal work. So I also wanted to still be able to help their accounting professionals. I'm on a lot of accounting platforms in Facebook and try to help where I can, because I was very lucky to have had several wonderful mentors before I went into business for myself. And I know for a fact that a lot of what the advice that they provided me is why I've been able to get my business going and stay going for 7 years. So I want to be able to pass sort of their knowledge and what I've learned as a business owner along, and sort of help promote and work with accounting professionals that are interested in continuing sort of the educational platform. But I didn't want to invent the wheel, when there was already a platform for it, which is what this partnership is. So I'm super, super excited for this opportunity, and I know that it's going to be a really amazing tool for when we have accounting professionals become members of this new business, which is called the Bookkeepers HQ.
So the idea, or what you're focused on, is accounting professionals who want to dive into the construction niche, right? Or the contractors, or
the construction niche, I work with a variation of clients. I have the majority of my clients are construction or subcontractors or designers. This platform, though, is for any kind of niche that you want to come in, that you have experience in. It is not specific to a certain niche. We obviously, like you mentioned, it's something that's important for us to find within ourselves, find that what makes us happy, what we enjoy working on the most, and then really just go gung-ho with it, because everything that I have now is a result of all referrals, not through advertisement or anything. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to push within this new business that we're starting, is that it's not about you or your brand. And it's important as an accounting professional for you to continue the education that you have, because all of that ends up being a big investment for your clients. And while the investment time-wise, especially the last couple of years with all the SBA and tax laws calls that we're all having to deal with, it's all beneficial to your clients. And that's what in turn becomes the reason why I get referrals, is because I think I go the extra mile for my clients and they look to me for that advice, but it pays back with the referrals that they send. So, we're not here to get rich quick. This is here for us to do what we love and help the people that are in a new business owner or even an experienced business owner, but needs a little bit of extra guidance. And maybe they didn't have that before. Maybe they were trying to do it. And I work with some of the most unorganized group of entrepreneurs, which are contractors. So I'm very used to the nitty gritty and really trying to dive in and educate them. And that's what I love.
Yeah. And just like the example that I used of, we're a Netflix, right? We know that Hulu's out there, and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime. And so you're creating sometimes, you need to have multiple streaming services. And that's where this kind of partnership helps out, is that, that Netflix content is there for those folks, but then when they need that
that more of a mentorship, that's where you come in, right? And so
referrals, we'll be offering doing referrals for all of our members as well. So since I'm not interested in growing too much more internally myself, I'm turning down about 5 or 6 referrals on a monthly basis right now, and they're all referrals from existing clients. And I hate that. I hate having to turn them down. But what I hate the most is I don't have a lot of other accounting professionals that I'm confident enough in and know enough about to be able to refer them to somebody else that I know that they would be in good hands with. So that's sort of what this is for me to have a better idea, have a better basically book of business, and then I can take these referrals that are coming in, and then as this business grows, we'll be advertising more to get more of the outside referrals to come in and place them with the person that is educated enough and loves what they do. And that's where the niche part comes in too, because that's one of our questions for all the members when they come in is, what is it that you like to do? What niche do you enjoy working with? So that's a big part of it.
So it's a way for you to clone yourself, I think, is what I'm getting out of this, right?
Girl needs too many more Shawnas, but I think there's a lot of people.
But I get that because sometimes you want to make sure, because your name is on the line when you're referring just as much as the person that's being referred to, and you want to make sure that handoff and that transition is not something that comes back to you, right?
I want to feel confident in the handoff. I want to feel confident that they're going to have, and then I want the accounting professional that gets that new client to have the support of, if you have questions, you can come to us. They've got the continuing education platform. They've got the how-tos and stuff like that. And then we're going to be doing, based off the membership level, we're going to be doing podcasts, and we're going to be having a Wine Wednesday Q&A session where you can throw out some questions and
wine.
You're
talking my language.
Day drinking.
I'm hoping for just a more relaxed environment. I want people to come in and be very honest, and you're not in business for yourself for 7 years and heard some mean comments, or you have to be able to take the good, bad, and ugly. And that's what that platform is going to be for, is I want to hear what you're suffering, what are your struggles, and what do you need help with, and what are your frustrations within this industry, or just the process of business ownership, or everything like that.
Sounds
so
great.
Where do people go to find out more information about this program?
So they can email us at maincontact@thebookkeepershq.com. And our website is set to go live along with our Facebook sites and our Instagram and LinkedIn sites. Everything goes live on March 1st. That's when we're really going to be pushing and advertising for the membership, so we can get enough membership enrollments, and then we can start doing the referrals come April 1st.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us. And I've been asking all the questions. Carrie, do you have a?
I just say, as I've been a pro advisor since the beginning of the pro advisor program, and my niche was just doing implementations. I would occasionally fall into taking bookkeeping jobs I really didn't want to. But if I did, this is a great platform, and then I could give you those referrals. So it sounds great to me, when we come across those as well. And I like you, I don't have that network of, this is a bookkeeper that I trust to send it to. But it's nice to know that you're going to take them further, so that we have that stamp of confidence. So I'm excited about your venture and looking forward to seeing it grow.
Thank you very much. I'm super excited about it as well. Tired, but excited.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to stay for the remainder of the workshop if you want, or you can drop off, because I know you're a busy lady with trying to get everything
go live by March 1st, but we're going to shift gears and talk about payroll.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I'm super excited about the partnership.
Thanks, Shawna.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Wine Wednesday.
Don't forget wine. Is that wine before or after the workshop? I mean,
or during.
Or during. All right. So we want to talk a little bit about what is payroll, right? And that's just where we're going to start off, because, in general, the Payroll Fundamentals course is just going to be almost like a glossary, right? And that's what we're going to be doing is going through the topics. And so we thought we'd just start off with the fundamental question of what is payroll? And Racheal, since you talk to small businesses and accounting professionals all day about payroll over at ADP, what is payroll? If somebody were to ask you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Dan and Carrie. So first thing I would say is it's a very vital part of any organization. It's typically what keeps your employees coming into work. But more so than that, payroll is, how you're paying a lot of the vital taxes to the IRS and to the state. So as much as many people see payroll as just cutting a check, there is a lot more to payroll, which is, kind of the premise of this course as well as many others to follow. But for me, I think about employee classification. I think about taxes. I think about the method of actually paying the employees, deductions, garnishments, you name it. There's certainly a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's to your point, it is more than a paycheck, right? I mean, that is just one aspect. There's a creation of the paychecks, and then there's what happens after those paychecks are created, what needs to happen there. Gary, you spent a lot of time cutting your teeth on payroll implementations. Maybe chipped a tooth.
Yeah, exactly. So when I went through my CPA journey and worked for a CPA firm, they threw me in with the payroll tax return group. And I learned that way backwards. And then how in the world do you get there? You have to do these returns, but why? How did you get there? And it's just a lot to unravel. It's a big part of a budget for a company. If you want to succeed and you want to keep staff, you cannot mess up a paycheck. If you want to lose someone really fast, try screwing up their paycheck. It's not advised. So to me, winging it and figuring it out as you go is sort of scary. You want to make sure you have a team behind you that knows what they're doing. And we've recently started working with ADP for that reason. Even though I've been in business on my own since 2010, I feel like their resources are top notch. And I understand a lot about payroll, but I don't know what I don't know as well. So I don't know there's a lot of statistics around payroll. Racheal, I'm going to throw you some questions like, what are the percentage of people that get caught with having to pay penalties because they didn't understand it?
So I don't know, I guess, the specific percentage on penalties, but I do know that they say every 3.5 seconds a labor law changes. And so it's just like, that's a crazy statistic to keep up with. So I can imagine the penalty rate is pretty high, especially with, everything with COVID and the amount of challenges that have occurred this past, 2 to 3 years.
And because I know what's the question I want to ask now? How many times can you say, well, I just didn't know before that runs thin? I mean, when you get a tax notice or something like that, they really don't care, right? I mean, you're out of compliance and you need to pay taxes and penalties and interest, right?
Right.
Well, I know working at a CPA firm, we had to assist with those notices. And way back in the dinosaurs roaming the earth times, you could write a letter and ask to have that penalty waived for a mistake, for being new. And they generally would, but it would take forever to get a reply. And, if your systems are broken, you're just going to continue to make those mistakes. Cash flow can be a mess if you're not doing it right, if you're not budgeting right. There's a lot to it that people can mess up. And when we're recommending that someone signs up for payroll, whether it's the Intuit or the ADP, one of the things, if they've had penalties, right there, one penalty could have covered for them to go ahead and pay the fee to have payroll run. The other thing that a lot of people haven't grasped, and we find in our community of pro advisors, is that it's not really a great tool for you to make money on. You can't really mark it up because you have competition with the technology and the software that's doing it more automated, that it's really hard for you to mark up your labor rate and make money on it. It's been, for us, we just find it's better to just recommend something reputable that so the customer's happy.
Yeah, good point. I mean, I remember, trying to, put an engagement letter together about, payroll services, and his response was, well, I could just order the service and leave you out of it, right? I mean, like,
you're like, yes, please.
Go right ahead.
Let's do that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess in a 50,000 foot level, when does a business owner need payroll? Like when does that come into the conversation of a business? Because especially if it's like a solopreneur, going into, does a single person need payroll? Or when does it become, I'm paying myself out of my business and I actually need payroll? Racheal, do you have a rule of thumb?
Yes. So I don't want to jump ahead at all, but one thing I'll say is the first thing we ask people is how their business is set up, because I'm sure this is a course that you'll get into, but obviously, depending on how the business is structured, some can have payroll, some cannot. So that is the first thing to look at. The second piece I would say is, we work with, a lot of different pro advisors, obviously through y'all, and different CPAs across the country. And I would say every partner I've spoken to has a different magic number as far as when you make this, you should start paying yourself. So I would just say, it's helpful to consult with a CPA or consult with your accountant to confirm what that magic number is for you. But it is an important conversation to have right out the gates when you do open a business, because you want to make sure, payroll can be a really big tax play for you to ensure you get additional write-offs and things like that. So it is a conversation you want to have before you've made too much money and then say, oh, oops, I should have done that.
Yeah, and it's usually after the deadline. When you can make those changes, right?
Right. And that's what I mean, because you sometimes see people where they've had a year where they've earned so much money, have done nothing, and then come to their CPA saying, well, what do I do now? And the answer is typically, well, you have to pay this bill.
Right. Yeah, they're not, there is no humor when it comes to tax forms or payroll forms, right? It's like, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So in general, and to your point, yes, we are going to talk a little bit more detail. We'll have lessons about, structuring the structure of the business and how that affects payroll, and employees versus subcontractors. When do where do you draw the line about those types of things? And we'll talk about, policy and decisions that a business owner would need to make when it comes to payroll. So that's kind of our topic on what is payroll. The last thing we wanted to talk about with the Workshop Wednesday is some news. We realized last couple of weeks, there's a lot of push around conversion from desktop QuickBooks to online. And there was always this line in the sand when it came to the number of targets. How much data can I export or bring up to QuickBooks Online? And it was always this, when I was there at Intuit, first it was the size of your company file. If it was over 100 megabytes, you couldn't do that, or 50 megabytes. And then
it kept growing, which was good. But for the longest time, there was a limitation on the number of targets, and it was 350,000. And we just discovered within the last couple of weeks that number has increased to 750,000. Under no fanfare. It was just like, surprise, you now have twice as much data as before as you can do. And what this does is it eliminates a lot of large company files from having to scale back their data. But Carrie, you might have some opinions about the amount of data that you're converting to QuickBooks Online. What are your thoughts about this this change of having more data that you can convert from desktop to online?
I guess I'm going to have to bounce a question back to you. So when you do bring in the history, which is fine, when you have to do you have to redo all the bank recs? There's things that you have to do that the more data you bring in, the more work you're creating for yourself.
Yeah. Well, it depends, right? So when I'm going to throw it back to you. So when you convert data from desktop to online, when it comes to reconciliations, the reconciliation reports don't come over, right? So when you finish a reconciliation for December 31st, 2021, and you mark it complete, QuickBooks Desktop, of course, creates a reconciliation report and stores that in the company file.
Mine out. Yep.
Yeah. Those reports don't come over. Now they're still there. I mean, you can print them out and save them yourself and then attach them if you want. The reconciled status of that transaction is saved, and that makes the journey from desktop to online. So the transaction is reconciled. You don't have to re-reconcile the transaction again. But when it was reconciled, what month it was reconciled, those types of things don't come over. It's just, I've been reconciled, and I'll pick up from the next point on moving forward. So if you wanted to save those reconciliation reports and attach them, so that they're in the company file, you certainly can. And then from that point forward, new reconciliations will cause those reports to be created in QuickBooks Online. But if something doesn't come over, your reconciliation opening balance is off now, right? So if a transaction, a check, or a paycheck, since we're talking payroll, if a paycheck doesn't make the journey from desktop to online for whatever reason, that transaction is no longer there. So therefore your reconciliation will be off. But it is just a matter of, once you find that, you can re-enter that and re-reconcile it. You're back up and normal.
Ouch. So a good rule of thumb, if I'm hearing you right, is to have your payroll not be all inside of QuickBooks, right? Because if it's standalone, then you can just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using something like ADP, where it's completely outside, those transactions are not paychecks inside of QuickBooks Desktop. They're other transactions that typically don't have a problem making the journey from one to the other. But any transaction that potentially doesn't come over will affect your reconciliations. Right.
And I guess, and the other problems are that you can run into is if you are in those the niches, the industries that we still say just stay in desktop because you need inventory, or you've got such a complex job costing thing working here. If you move to online, you may be disappointed. Those are probably some things that have a problem. Like if you have sales orders in desktop, they don't exist in QBO, you're going to have some issues with getting it set back up. So I don't know, a large file. You did say, though, I did see you post about that. You said, even though you can do it, you may run into. So what was behind that? what might not come?
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, it's supposed to, everything that's in the history that's in your QuickBooks Desktop should come over, and it should match to the penny your balance sheet and your profit and loss, they should match.
Probably should have advanced edition because the others have limitations.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using class tracking, you definitely need plus or advanced. If you're using custom fields, you'll want to use advanced to take advantage of that, so you don't have to redo a lot of that setup. use advanced. Go with the largest feature set, especially if you're
have a
if
huge
you're
file.
using if you have a large file. But the advantage here of them increasing the amount is that now that QuickBooks Desktop has completely gone to a subscription, if you need that history, you can just take it all to QuickBooks Online as long as it fits, right?
Okay. Right fit. We believe in that. So then you can
Right.
turn, once you have it tied down, then you can turn the other subscription off.
Right. And then if you need to, like, okay, this was a bad idea.
Go back.
I want to go back to
abort.
Right. And we talked about, best practices when you are converting from desktop to online. Run them concurrently to make sure before, as a trial run, before you actually move everything and abandon ship
and run those key reports and things like that you might not think about till year end. So make sure all those key reports still operate somewhere so that the decision makers don't get angry for you moving their cheese.
Right. Because you can, if you did bring all your data over and you're like, okay, green light, I'm going to stay with QuickBooks Online. You don't have to have a pared down subscription of desktop just to see, historical information, because it all came over in theory, right? And I've had a whole career of when it doesn't work, right?
So you've seen every scenario.
I'm the wrong person to ask if it works, because they would call and say when it didn't, right? And nobody called and said, yep, everything worked just perfectly.
Yahoo, it worked. You never got those calls that into it.
Yeah. But I mean, being on the other side of it now, 95% of desktop conversions, they're pretty smooth. From desktop to online, you'll have those things come over just fine. It's just a few things to look at and make sure that they did or didn't. Usually it's some kind of workflow that is in desktop that just doesn't have an option in online. I did one the other day where they were discounting invoices, and that created a journal entry. And you can do that in desktop, where you go in and you discount basically right off. And all of those journal entries became unapplied. So it's only 1,400 customers, that they had to go through and reapply a journal entry to an open invoice. It's some rote clicking, to be able to do that. But had they not realized that, had they not done it that way in desktop, it probably would have, done fine. It's one of those things where that workflow just didn't have a specific, and you can't ask that, because you don't know what you don't know until it comes up.
Yeah. And what I hear too, I hear the nightmare ones, and it's usually around the inventory and the job costing and the report. So I'm not hearing the Yahoo, it worked. I'm hearing the customer is angry because they lost this report, or inventory is not working like it should. Where are my sales orders? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, whoops, Intuit's marketing is so strong with QuickBooks Online that the customer, end user, or the pro advisor is believing that they have to make that move. They don't realize that the option is to stay put, perhaps add hosting so they can access from anywhere, and they keep those features. So we're constantly educating around that as well. So if it's a right fit, great. If it's not, there's no reason to move them, just for simplicity.
Yeah, and one of the, we could have chatted with
Shawna about this, but one thing to keep in mind is that billable expenses, when you're using job costing in desktop, and you have billable expenses in desktop, whether you've billed them or not, they will all come over as billable in the conversion. So typically, and that's something that, again, you probably you're not going to ask your customer, I mean, do you use billable expenses? It's going to be a surprise, because what happens is all of them become unbilled, and you have to then, take care of them, because there's now this 1.6 million on the money bar of unbilled expenses, or whatever. It's a large number. There is a utility inside to manage those, but of course, there's always something lingering underneath. I had a situation where we converted. They had millions of dollars of unbilled expenses, and the items that they were tied to were deleted. They were inactive, so you couldn't use the utility on inactive items. So there was just a lot of things on the
click to fix.
Yeah, to fix it and get it remedied. And they ultimately did, and they're still using QuickBooks Online today. It was just one of those things that they realized, after the fact, you get those surprises. So the news, though, is that now you can do more of that. Because
instead of 1 million unbilled, you'll have double.
Yeah, you'll have 3 million of unbilled expenses. So, but that's the news that we wanted to chat about today with regards to the conversion from desktop to online. The limitation is now 400,000 targets more than what it was in the past. Now, what a target is, we just want to mention that. A target is a line item reference on a transaction. It's the shortest example of that. So if you have a journal entry with 6 different accounts being referenced, that's 6 targets. 6. I ran out of fingers. So it's not the number of transactions. It's not the number of list elements or anything like that when it comes to targets. It's a transaction and how many different things it's referencing on a line item basis.
So if you are using the proper workflow in desktop and you got estimate to invoice to sales or sales order, invoice, receipt, deposit, boom, all those, are those part of the targets as well? Or that's just related?
So every transaction. So if you have an invoice with 5 items on it, that's 6 targets. Ooh. Right? And then you convert, you pay that, right? So that is accounts receivable and the deposit account. So that transaction only has 2.
Then you have to make the deposit with all those payments.
Right. So then you have a multiple, a deposit with multiple payments. So every payment that's referenced on there is a target.
So basically, a file with a lot of history will naturally have a lot of targets.
Exactly.
And one thing that we do as well, and maybe this helps in your projects, is we really like using a trustworthy condensed person. And he can get those targets down. If you say leave the last 2 years in, you'll always have that history. But then he can help you by doing that. I would imagine the targets go way down.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. The less amount of transactions you have there, by default, you'll have lowered the number of targets.
Okay.
So we talked a lot about targets, and we talked a little bit about what is payroll, and we talked about our new partnership with Bookkeepers HQ. So hopefully you join us next week. We're not sure if we'll see Kate or Racheal, but maybe we'll see both. But we're going to be talking about some duties in payroll. Who does what in payroll? So look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great one.
Thank you.
Great week. Have a good week. Thanks, Racheal.
Thank you both. Have a great day.